My name is Elise Wagner. Many of you know me. I've been president since June of 2020. Actually started a little bit earlier than that because my immediate past president is a vice president of employment law at Amazon, and when the pandemic hit, he had some other things to worry about. I also work full-time. I just want to tell you a little bit about my family and my history at HNT. So I have 3 kids, 2 in college, 1 in high school. They all went through FRS. They were all bar and bar mitzvahed here. They've been TAs in Madrachim in FRS. They've been on the Massah trips, very involved in USY. So this has really been a hub for them and something they've been involved with, honestly, as young as, they all started going to Morning Minyan daily when they each turned a year old. So they grew up here. I said I wanted them to feel comfortable as they ran up and down the halls. I wonder if I overachieved that. I also grew up here. I went through FRS. I was bat mitzvahed here. I was married here. My mom, as many of you know, Pauline Reiter, was the first female president of the congregation. Excuse me. Ahead of being on the board, over time I've chaired the ritual committee, the membership committee, involved in many other committees over the years. So this has really been home for me for a long time. I did leave after high school planning to never come back. But 7 years later, when I made my way back, it was very clear that I needed to be back at HNT. I bought a home along I-90 so that I could be accessible to HNT and some of the other things on Mercer Island. It's been a busy 18 months. So look at Julie Ellenhorn. She once told me every president has a thing, something that comes up and happens during their term. So what's my thing? We got a new senior rabbi. We got a new executive director. We're dealing with a pandemic, and now we're talking about Barnaby Point. So I think I've had my things, but really just happy to be here. If you've heard me speak before, like, HNT is home. I have a true passion for this place. I was raised here. My Jewish life has always been important to me, and I am raising my children in the same way. So.
I think now it's working. So good evening. It's so nice to see, the one that are here, so nice to see you here, and to see, I hope that we have a few more online. So my name is Merav Kanan, and I am the new executive director. Some information or background about myself. I was born in Israel and did my regular Israeli routine. Went to the army after high school, went to the Hebrew U for my degree, and then got married, had two boys. And in '98, we made the decision that we are going to move to the United States for 3 years to do for my husband's postdoc. And the 3 years are now 23 years later, with 2 more children that were added after we moved to the United States. We lived during those 23 years in Connecticut. During this time, since we arrived, I worked in the Jewish community, started to work immediately when we moved at the JCC in different positions. And after 12 years, I left the JCC and I started working at the synagogue close by, in a city close by to New Haven, as the rabbi assistant and the communication specialist. And I moved, while I was there, I was asked to become their executive director. And I was there for 7 years. And my two older boys, during this time, graduated from their college and moved to the West Coast and moved to Seattle. And for me, it was too far away to be from my boys. So we made the decision as a family that we are going to move to the West Coast. And Herzl-Ner was just there looking for executive director. So I was very lucky. And to find Herzl-Ner. And so I started in July. During this time, I met really an amazing community that was so welcoming and so willing to help and support me in any way that I was, looking for support, to introduce me to the community, to help me, to teach me the problems, to share with me different issues and different happy moments of people's life. So it's really an incredible community, and I'm very excited to be here to learn more and to be able to share my knowledge and with you. So thank you so much for welcoming me.
Good evening, everyone. I never make assumptions, so I'll give you a bit of biographical information about me, too. By the way, it's Rabbi Herber. I'm the senior rabbi of HNT. I know it's kind of hard with the mask on. I have been a pulpit rabbi for almost all of my nearly 30 years in the rabbinate. I've served congregations in Philadelphia and in Milwaukee. For the 2 previous years before coming here, I took a little break from congregational life to pursue a wonderful opportunity working as a member of the staff of Shalom Hartman Institute North America. I was in a very selective 3-year fellowship program at the Shalom Hartman Institute in Jerusalem. I'm a senior fellow there, a senior rabbinic fellow. And I worked primarily on national rabbinic programs for Hartman North America, but realized that I really missed being a pulpit rabbi. And it just so happened that Herzl-Ner Tamid was looking for one. And it was awfully beshert because some of you know, certainly Elise knows, that I was one of 2 final candidates to be the assistant rabbi here when I was graduating or being ordained from JTS. And when I arrived, I realized that I forgot to pack my toothpaste. So Elise took me to go buy toothpaste when I interviewed here some 27 years ago now. So here I am as a senior rabbi, and was very lucky because I interviewed here, some of you may recall, in February. And about a week and a half, 2 weeks later, this thing called COVID hit. And everything locked down, including our relationship, because fortunately, we all felt that you and I were a great fit and didn't have to interview anywhere else. And here I am. You know, I'm a rabbi, so I have to talk Torah for a minute. So it's interesting that we're having this town hall on Shabbat Vayichi, which recounts not only the death of Joseph, but also the death of his father Jacob. And I have really tried to wrap my head around what the experience was for Jacob to leave home, because there wasn't a pandemic raging, but there was a famine, and it was regional. And he and his family had to go down to Egypt, this foreign place. And before he dies, he knows that his death is imminent, so he has this conversation with his favorite son, Joseph, who's the prime minister, if you will, of Egypt. And he tells Joseph, when I lie down with my fathers, euphemistically meaning when I die, and you bury me, when you leave, promise me that you will disinter me and bring me back to my native land to bury me there with my fathers. Because there is something that is unnatural about being in a place that isn't your home, and there's no real familiarity with where you are sojourning because it's a foreign place. We can have foreign space and we can also have foreign time. And I don't know if this resonates with you, but we are all, yearning for what was and to be back where we were. And while we haven't moved, obviously, in so many ways, our world feels as if we are somewhere else. And I really feel that, and I am sensitive to it. And having come here in the middle of a pandemic with no family to a foreign place with really no friends, although I've made wonderful friends since I've been here, I really relate to my namesake, and I have a feeling I know how you're feeling and where you are emotionally when it comes to returning to a time when we did things much more normally, not only in our places of business or in our homes, but also here in our spiritual home. My daughter, Michal, works for the press spokesman at the Embassy of the State of Israel. She's a press officer, so she's in the other Washington. My son, Adine, is on leave from school, just got his real estate license in the state of Nevada. And even though my son's down there, my son is as far east as you can probably get, I really feel very much at home here. This is my community. You're my congregational family. And together, my aspiration and my hope is that we will go back to doing things the way our fathers did them and the way that our mothers did them and the way that we used to do them. It's going to take a little bit of time, but I am more than motivated to get us there. We have an incredible team of clergy, of staff, of lay leadership, and I'm very, very optimistic. This challenge is a really great opportunity. So, looking forward to talking with you tonight and hopefully thinking about the future.
So we got a few questions ahead of time. I'll read them each. As it happens, we got 3, and one most appropriate for me, the second most appropriate for my Rav, and the third most appropriate for Rabbi Herber. So the first question, the last email I received regarding the community campus was in late 2018, which included a school building for JDS on the JCC campus. Since then, a lot has happened. 3 years have passed, a new rabbi, COVID, and now we have a proposal to house JDS on Barnaby Point. Can you please give us an update on what has happened regarding the community campus? Is it still being proposed? Has it been shelved? Is the JDS Barnaby Point proposal a part of a still proposed community campus? I am trying to understand how we arrived from the original community campus proposal to the current Barnaby Point JDS proposal. Thanks in advance. So, I'm looking at Audrey because she's going to correct me when I get something wrong. But with the community campus, meetings were occurring, and then COVID hit, and everything got put on hold, things slowed down. Also, the city of Mercer Island, which was integral in some of the zoning that needed to happen, they had to put everything on hold because of COVID. So things were stalled for COVID and for the city. In the meantime, we're always happy to partner with Jewish organizations, and we continue to do so. But in the meantime, our organization looked within and said, what do we need to do to fulfill our goals, and how can we do that on our property? And I believe the JCC actually had that same conversation in their leadership team. And what happened with JDS was really partly a timing issue. As many of you know, they have sold their building. They have to be out of it by a certain time. And we have a piece of property where we already own it, and we're working with the city to make sure the zoning will allow the school. So hopefully this is something that can go a little quicker. Our goals early on were really to have new classrooms and have a chapel type area that's bigger than the current one. What the JDS plan gives us is classrooms, and of course we use them at opposite times, as well as the way they're looking at things, what could be a chapel type area larger than what we have. So it was a really good win-win for us. They have money from having sold their building. We have land. We have a lot of members in common. We have a lot of similar values. And I have to say, we only started meeting with them this summer. This all happened very quickly. But the meetings have been fantastic, that you can really feel the partnership and the synergy between the two organizations. So after we go through the questions that are on the sheet, we can come back to other things if people want. So I'm going to read the second question. This one's for Meirav. Given the numerous ransomware attacks on many businesses and institutions, does the HNT have a recovery plan in place in case of a significant computer outage? The situation is only going to get worse, and I would hate to see HNT held ransom for many thousands of dollars or suffer a major outage without a backup plan. I have some questions. Oh, that was something different. That's the next question. So, question about ransomware and how we're protecting ourselves in the electronic world.
Forgot that I have a voice that no one can hear without the microphone. So looking at our cyber security and how HNT is securing anyone that is using the information that is installed in this cyber world. First of all, we made few changes just in the past couple of months. And we used to have a server, physical server, that sat in our basement that collected all the information that was from every computer that is used in this building. The server, first of all, got to the end of its life, but also for security reasons, we made the decision that we are going to move from a physical server to the cloud. So everything now is in the AWS, and their security and what they're providing is a secure system to make sure that all the information is safe. Second is that certainly we do have installed on our system a sonic wall, and we have an IT company that is giving us the security services to make sure, again, that all the information is secure. We are also in the process of moving our membership database right now, called Herzl-Ner. Again, sits on the server. We are moving out from Herzl-Ner, and we are moving to a new membership database that's called Shul Cloud. Again, the company itself has its own security systems, and it's serving a couple of hundreds of synagogues around the United States and Canada and outside of the North America area. And this is also going to allow members to be able to log into their own accounts to see what is there, what information is there. All those systems and those companies, they have their own also security, and they're putting a lot of efforts and work to make sure that the information is secure. And we have, of course, passwords for every computer, and the Wi-Fi is secure. So this is something that we are working, again, with the IT department. And the last thing I checked today, we do have also separate insurance for cybersecurity. So we are covered with insurance to make sure that if something goes wrong, we have the insurance coverage for it. So I hope I answered.
Okay, and our third question, and this one's for Rabbi Herber. Pesukei de Zimra has mostly been eliminated. More recently, the Musaf and Ein Kelohenu have been eliminated during services with the B'nai Mitzvah. Were these reductions made to save time? If so, why is it important to save time on Shabbat morning? Was it in the hope that continuing to shorten the service would result in greater attendance on Shabbat morning? If so, that didn't work either. Attendance continued to decline over many years prior to the COVID pandemic. I may have missed it, but I do not recall any written communication to the membership describing these changes, explaining why they were made, and whether they would be permanent. Couldn't the shul have been more open with the congregation, including with those members, however few, who are regular attendees and for whom a traditional conservative service remains meaningful?
So it's a great question. I think, unfortunately, the individual who posed it missed some of the communication, whether it was during Shabbat services when I spoke to the need to abbreviate our service, or whether it was one of my Friday weekly videos to the congregation and other communication that was actually in writing. The reason why the Shabbat morning service has been abbreviated, and that is something that is temporary, not long-term, is because we have really been trying to keep people as safe as possible. And the less time, especially as we were not vaccinated, to save us from being exposed together in this space and in other spaces during services, the decision was made to abbreviate parts. And that decision was made in consultation with the ritual committee, which represents the congregation, and with our reopening committee. Every time our reopening committee is met, I've asked whether that protocol of removing certain things from the service, primarily the earlier part of the service when very few people are here, so that as often as possible we can do a full Musaf service, especially when there isn't a bar bat mitzvah, and at times the service actually goes past 12 when it's Shabbat, Chanukah, and Rosh Chodesh, and there are three Sifrei Torah, and there's Hallel, and there are other things. When I look at my watch and it's 12:15, I don't think I'm going to engender myself with anybody if I say we're now going to start the Musaf service. So there are times, because of the real lateness of the hour, but primarily because of the recommendation of physicians on our reopening committee, for the time being, we're going to continue to abbreviate things during the Shabbat morning service. And my hope is that once we really get past this pandemic and the concerns about breathing the same air for extended periods of time is no longer a concern, and the doctors say, Rabbi, go ahead, we will restore the things that we haven't been doing since I got here. So my hope is that we will be able to have a service that will have elements that everybody, including your rabbi, who loves to sing and loves to pray, and will put them back.
So I'm happy to pass the mic around if people have specific questions, if there are just topics you'd like us to speak about. Raise your hand, I can come with the mic.
I tried to send a question. So I guess my comment is, and then question, it seems from what we hear in the news that COVID will be with us for a long time, more like the flu, but it's not going away. And so I guess I'd like to hear a little bit about what we expect will change here over the next year, assuming things with COVID are kind of in a stable mode where everyone here is vaccinated and everybody's masked. At what point do we expect to see more programming, cookies at the kiddish? When do we expect to go back to something more normal, assuming things kind of stay stable? Because I don't think COVID's going away anytime soon.
So we can't predict the future, obviously, but we have had this conversation in the reopening task force committee meetings. And one of the things that we talked about at our most recent meeting, which I think was early November, was we are currently in cold and flu season. So there were a lot of topics that we talked about that we decided to table until February, just recognizing that cold and flu season is here and the physicians on the committee are seeing the flu out there and in the hospitals. And so we have the long list of things we'd like to do, and I think soon after the first of the year, we'll have the conversation again because we'll be looking at kind of post-cold and flu season, what can we now do?
And I would add, Julie, that in anticipation, hopefully, of being able to navigate COVID, which, as every expert indicates, is going to be here in one form or another. I've been meeting with young family, parents of young families who really would like to have programming, safe programming for them and their children. And we're going to be convening the Purim Spieler soon to talk about Purim and what I anticipate will be an in-person Purim. So guided by the medical experts on the reopening committee, and I think we've really done a great job of supplementing the reopening committee with really well-respected medical professionals, one of whom consults for the Gates Foundation on COVID, and also corporations and other organizations that, guided by their advice and what we hope to do, that we'll be offering a far more robust menu of things for the congregation at large.
And I'm also actually going to answer a question that I got via email, as I get these regularly. I had a question come up recently that at Shabbat services we have the vaccinated section and the unvaccinated section. And the question was, with all of the kids now being vaccinated, should it really be half and half? And just so you know what our plan is and how we're trying to make some data-driven decisions, we are working with Eliyahu, who collects vaccination information from the students, to see where the student population is in being vaccinated. And based on those numbers, it is likely we are going to expand our vaccinated section.
Great, thank you. And it would be great to see maybe some more encouragement for people to come back. I mean, I've really felt like even with all the safety precautions, I have come back to services and would come to events under the current status, but I don't feel like we're hearing an enthusiasm and encouragement. And I know I'm hearing out in the community a lot, people just don't feel like we're here. It's hard.
Thank you for that feedback.
Can I just add one thing to what Julie was saying?
So wait, we're going to get you the mic because we have people on video.
Okay, I'm sorry. Oh, good.
And Julie,
That's
just
good. Thank you, Julie.
Julie, I'm sorry. Just is that Audrey?
Yeah.
Okay, just 1 second, Audrey. We're doing this because we want people to feel encouraged, and we wanted people to be able to be here in person to interact with us, and to hear from us about sort of like the state of the congregation. So we hear you loud and clear, and we're trying to respond to that need as much as possible.
So I wanted to say two things. One is just to add on to what Julie was saying. So when I was here, I used to be a regular on Shabbat, and I stopped coming because I don't feel good about watching it on TV. I'd rather be here. So I started coming again, and when I was here on this Saturday, when there was no bar mitzvah, there's no more aliyot. But yet, when we have a bar mitzvah, we have aliyot. So why can't we do? It just felt like we were sitting here. The only people who could participate in the service were those who could read Torah. And so it seems to me we do make accommodations for when there's a bar mitzvah and somebody wants to come up. You just step back. That to me could just be a start of connecting people to what's going on, because it feels very isolating. Like if you can't read Torah, you can't have an aliyah, or if you have a yort site, you can't have an aliyah. Or I think that those are some of the things that we're already partially doing. Let's just do it for those who come on a non-bar mitzvah day.
We're hoping to transition to do that very thing. The advice we got was, with the bar bat mitzvah, we've made a lot of exceptions to meet the needs of bar bat mitzvah during the pandemic, including having a bar bat mitzvah service in person when we weren't doing that for the congregation at large. So it does seem to be it does look inconsistent, and I totally acknowledge that. What we've tried to do is, limit the number of people coming up and down, so that we can we can address the issue of being in the space together, and trying to minimize the amount of time. And it does add time, but hearing from many people, my hope is that we will begin to do that.
Okay. I completely understand. Look, I'm in the healthcare world. I get it about the COVID restrictions, and I'm one who's very conservative about them. But that, to me, just seems not only inconsistent, and whether it takes more time or not, it engages the congregation if they're able to participate in the service. That's just I wanted to add one other thing to the whole issue of the JDS and the Barnaby point. I just wanted to add to this is that, we are hoping it works out with JDS because they'd be a perfect match for us. But the groundwork we're laying now allows us to work with other schools if this doesn't work out. So, and that not only will help with our classroom, we can share security, we can share maintenance, we can share lots of operational costs and help reduce other things. So there's a lot of goodwill and good use of our land that we're creating by going through this process. And I will say that we now have the city council's ear. I reached out to all of them before and after our meeting last week, and I think we have a good chance of creating a good product out of this. And we're hoping it will be JDS, but that at least we are setting the groundwork for creating some kind of positioning ourselves well for the future.
Thank you. And a huge thank you to Audrey for all the work she's doing. She's engaged with city council members, with neighbors, with obviously HNT, JDS, and on the side, she's, I think, writing a doctoral dissertation. So
I graduate in March. Woohoo!
So we'll let you pass on the mic. Who else would like to? Efren.
First of all, I don't think that Purim should be a problem because even the unmaskers wear masks on Purim, so that shouldn't be a problem. I was going to ask the question that Audrey asked, but I just one step. Some of the prayers we should get to congregate, the prayer for the country, the prayer for Israel. They can be members, somebody could do it, sitting down there, just go up. We have the shields, you have the masks. It just would feel better getting, as she said, to get the congregation involved.
Yeah, so as long as folks don't feel that they're being put on the spot, because that, unless we have Gabaim who are going to be here working the room, if you will, it requires me calling people out from the Bima. So I'm more than happy to do that.
No, we're hearing both you and Audrey, and this is something that we will definitely go back and discuss further. So thank you for the input.
One last, if we could, it would be great to give the proper respect to Kohanim and Levim and give them the Kohen Aliyah and the Levi Aliyah.
Are you a Kohen or a Levi?
No, my mother married below her station in life.
But we have our resident Kohen in the second row, so we're covered.
I have a question for Meirav. In the summer, I know I was involved in helping with calling people to update our directory. I have not seen or heard any more information about that, and I feel strongly that our current directory is quite outdated and has misinformation in it. Is there a plan to get that in place in the near future?
Yes. So, as I said before, we are moving from our current membership database that's called Herzl-Ner to the new membership database that is called ShulCloud. ShulCloud will actually has a directory built into it. So anyone that is a member can log into their account. It's just a URL, it's just an internet website that anyone can log in from any computer or any other device or their phone, and can go, if they're members, they will be able to see any other members' information, and every member will be able to then control what kind of information they would like to share with others. So only members will be able to see other members, and members will be able to make a decision if they want to share their phone numbers, cell phone numbers, email addresses, physical address, any information that is their information. They certainly can also opt out from this directory. So we will have it online, and if anyone that do not have the means or do not have the ability to go online, we will be able to then print it out and send a physical copy for them. But I think that the majority of our members just will be able to log in and see any current information. So we are going to start the process after migrating to ShulCloud after in the beginning of January. After we want to send out tax letters from Herzl-Ner, and then to start the process. We want to finish the process before the registration, the beginning of the registration for FRS and the new fiscal year. So everyone can be, so the hope is that by end of March, April, we will be able to be completely moving into ShulCloud. We'll be able to train our staff. We'll be able to train and give support to our members to be able to navigate the new system and to be up and running with we need to make sure that all the financial information was transferred correctly, that everything is functioning appropriately, and then we will, so by the beginning of the new fiscal year, everything will be on ShulCloud.
So since that's maybe 6 months out, is there any way to have some communication to us as a community that you're working on it, or Because like Linda said, I think the last one I have is from 2018, so that's pretty old.
Yes, so I believe that couple of the last call, there was some paragraph that said that we are going to move to a new membership database. We did not want to give more information because we did not, but at this point we did not sign a contract yet with the new company. Now that we are going to sign the contract now in December. And so we are going to work with the company that is doing the migration to provide us with the information, how to train the staff, and how to provide the appropriate letters and information, how to communicate efficiently and with the congregation, so you will know what to expect and the timelines of how things are going to play a role in the next few months. And so this is the plan for the next few months.
I'm just curious with the new, whatever we're building with a school or a campus or whatever, if there, since the idea is to have a school building that we can use, is there a plan for the old Lot School building?
So part of what is accelerating this is our old school building is pretty much near the end of its usable life. So, you know, we're talking about a lot of possibilities and we don't know yet what will happen. But if we are going to do something with the old school building, we need to do a lot to it.
Just curious of how our membership levels have held up during the pandemic.
So, in general, across the country, synagogue memberships, especially in the conservative movement, have been declining. Ours are in line with that. However, we have not seen any type of mass exodus based on COVID, that when we look at the reasons people are coming and leaving, a lot of our members who leave, it's because they are relocating. You know, we do have some who come through, we're not using it anymore, we haven't been in years, but in general, we haven't seen a great decline based on COVID. We do obviously have families economically affected by COVID. So we have families who are not able to pay their full dues. And as most of you know, we work with families so that they are able to be a member even if they don't have the financial means. Don't forget, we have a fundraiser February 12th. We are already looking at people to pledge money. But so we haven't seen a steep decline in membership, but there are concerns that we're not collecting as much money from members because people have been hit economically by COVID.
Bob, I just anecdotally add that the Lutheran church across from my home just merged with another Lutheran church because they really did get walloped by the pandemic. And we're really very lucky and very fortunate, and I think there's a vigor we have that unfortunately other houses of worship, even in other religious faiths, are really struggling. So I'm optimistic.
So the question was just asked about how FRS was holding up. So we actually, if I'm not mistaken, we have more FRS students this year than we did last year. So I know we recently went back to in-person, and there were families who had left because of that, and many of them have returned. Michael.
Rabbi Herbert, during the high holidays, one of your sermons, you announced a new initiative about affinity groups. And sounded like a good way to help facilitate more community. I was wondering if you had any update on maybe what we can expect from that?
I did. It was a question. No. Yeah, exactly. I can't remember what I talked about last Shabbat. Michael, thank you for the question. I was actually just speaking with Elise about it this morning. What I'm really excited about is the fact that the membership committee has enthusiastically embraced this affinity groups initiative, which is one of hopefully a number of approaches that we'll take to build community here. And it does that across the board by interest, and regardless of one's age or background or whatever. If you share an interest with somebody else, it's a really great way to enjoy that interest and to create bonds with those people, especially if you never met them before. So we're hoping to launch, I was speaking with Rebecca about it, in coordination with the membership committee, to launch the initiative after the first of the year. So you check your hot call, e-call, there will be information forthcoming.
I just wanted to know, COVID has caused us to communicate in new and different ways, and although many of us think that we're really sick of Zoom, sometimes it's very useful and allows people to do things that they might not otherwise do. How do you see this alternative kind of communication continuing or not continuing in what we do?
So for those of you, especially at home, who might not have heard the question, Susan was speaking to the new normal and the new reality and the advantage that comes with technology like Zoom and YouTube streaming, and how we considering using this tool as we move forward, regardless of the pandemic. And the answer is yes. Whether it'll be during religious services, every Shabbat moving forward, every holiday moving forward, when we're in person, we will be streaming, regardless of whether there's COVID or not. Because we want to be able to reach people who, for a whole variety of reasons, cannot be here in person, including people who don't even live in the community. I teach an Introduction to Judaism class every Sunday morning. I have somebody in that class who lives in Detroit. I have no idea who she is. Now I do, but she found us and she attended a class and she asked me, can I keep coming because I love the class? I said, of course. So our reach is so much greater when we utilize this very powerful tool. And thanks to Diane Doherty and to Audrey for investing in our congregation and providing us with the hardware and the software to be able to do it. So we're going to be leveraging it as much as possible. Services, education, social programming, everything.
And I think it gives us some flexibility. We also recognize the importance of being together in person. So I think program by program, committee by committee, there will be decisions made. Are we doing this in person? Are we doing it remote? Are we doing it both? I know, just to use an example, I'm a member of the Women's League Book Club, and we've been meeting remote. We haven't had our formal conversation yet about what do we do now that we can come in person. But I know one of the conversations we had when hypothesizing what we might do was, even if we come in person, we're going to have a laptop and Zoom. We have a member who has moved to the summit, and we want to be able to continue to include her. So I think there are a lot of possibilities. I've spoken a bit, it was probably a year ago, so they don't remember, but with the executive committee, like, even if and when board meetings go back to being in person, maybe the executive committee stays remote so that this group of people doesn't have to meet in person twice a month. So I think as we move forward, we're all going to kind of learn based on the needs of the people and the nature of the program what is best.
So I had a question which was partially answered about Zoom. I mean, we know some people who don't belong to a synagogue because they can watch every week, one Zoom or the other, you know, and go shul surfing. And so, but you don't see at this point that we are losing members who decide they don't have to pay because they can watch the Herzl Zoom at no charge.
You know, we're not seeing that. And the fact of the matter is, even in person, we are always open to everyone. So having membership was never an entry fee to come to services. So what we really try to do is promote membership based on what it allows for our community. You have to take the mic because there are people on.
I guess just to tag on that, I'm curious because I did notice that, at least on the East Coast, now that we can go to anybody's services, I did notice that there are synagogues that are doing virtual memberships. Is that something that we've looked at?
Oh, this is actually, our membership is something in our bylaws. So in order to change a membership category, it needs to go to the executive committee, the general board, and then to the congregation. And I'm so glad you brought that up because we are actually writing up a proposal for a bylaw change to create what we are going to call a friend of HNT for those who are out of state and would like to be members. So that is absolutely something we're considering. All I can tell you right now is it's an idea because it does have a process it has to go through, but we are absolutely looking at that. So thank you.
I've got a question regarding the aging building that we're sitting in. And, you know, I think that going back probably now 10 years when we talked about, you know, a new building and various different programs and, you know, partnering and such, we've kind of, I think at a certain point, deferred maintenance becomes neglect. And just curious, as I drive up to the building in the daytime, it clearly needs paint or at least needs to be cleaned, and the whole grounds do. And I was just curious where we stand on the building itself. I mean, it needs a lot of work, as we know, from water leaks and everything else.
So I'm going to ask you to actually hand your microphone back to Audrey because she's really been, she's been spearheading a lot of the what do we do with our property and our buildings, and she's very well versed on this.
Yeah, I'm going to be, you didn't know this, but I was really getting my doctorate in construction. I know that people think, just because the way we've talked about it, that this building is in a lot of disrepair, but it actually is not. We do need a new roof, which, you know, we've had it for a long time, but, you know, we just put in an HVAC system not that long ago, and we have sprinklers. I mean, we've got a lot of things going for it. We need paint. We need some siding work yet. I don't know exactly what. We're bringing in a contractor to look at it. And so basically, as part of the conversation with the Jewish Day School is our commitment is to spend some money on our own building, but not $20 million. I mean, we're talking about a lot smaller. I hate to say it because you're all going to think I'm crazy when I say small, but it is compared to what capital campaigns can be. So our intent is to get a new roof, to fix the siding and probably paint everywhere, and upgrade some of the things like upgrade the bathrooms a little, you know. Yeah, I know, really. In the ladies' room, it's a big waste of space, and we need to figure out how to do that better. So we are, and I was actually talking with the security guy this weekend about putting what actually JDS has done on their windows, put up that what do you call it, the sheath, whatever.
Oh,
that
the
goes
film.
over. The film, so that it doesn't shatter if, God forbid, somebody shoots in there. So we're looking at some of those things as well. So all of that will be part of the building process. And because we share so many donors with JDS, we're going to do this together as a combined fundraising. And it will not be, $20 million. I don't want to give a number yet. We have some idea, but it's, in my opinion, very doable. And I don't think we're going to have a problem raising that amount of money. It's not like we're doing a huge thing. Does that make sense? Bruce, you're a past president. You know what it... Yeah, and they are, but it's really, I've had an architect come in, and she told me she loves this building. She said it's amazing what's built here. And I think sometimes we forget actually how beautiful it is, from the structure of what it is. And she said, you would never be able to build something like this again here because it's big, it's got a lot of space, and, it's got history, and it's, mid-century modern. Everybody's building mid-century modern now, so we're right up there. But I think what we're trying to do is really look at the beauty of what we do have and use that to our advantage. And yes, we have to fix some things up, but we want to try to do it within a certain budget that makes sense and that is doable.
Other questions? Ephraim. We are getting past 8 o'clock. I don't know how long people intended to stay, but...
Has there been any, yes, it's a nice building, but for a lot of people, these stairs are a real problem. I mean, is there any thought to, if you get rid of the school building down there, to
So when I spoke about our two needs being the classrooms and a chapel space much larger than we have, what that was intended for is regular services, not necessarily a bar bat mitzvah, but so that we have a prayer space that isn't as big and isn't as difficult physically. That is why we used to be in the social hall a lot, and what we're trying to do is create a space like that.
And one last, after services, congregants like to speak with each other. And in the winter, sometimes it's difficult to be outside. Once in a while, it rains here. And is there any thought to maybe use the social hall? It's a big space. We don't have that many people. After services, or some other means so that you don't have to congregate outside in the cold and the wet?
Okay. We haven't actually thought about that. We've talked a little bit about the foyer and depending on the crowd size, but it's a good point, and we can definitely talk about that further. Okay, it looks like we've come to an end. I really want to thank everyone who came in person, everyone who is watching us from home. It's been a real pleasure working with Meirav and Rabbi Herber and continuing to do so. That part of what we've really tried to establish since all three of us have been on board is more of a leadership team. And maybe you've seen that a lot of the emails that go out are signed by the three of us. We really spend a lot of time together, talking about ideas, working together, and it's been tremendous. There are people with us today. I have to thank Michael and Julie for leading the search that found us Rabbi Herber, Bruce for leading the search that found us Meirav. So, this all happens because of everyone who's involved in our community and our congregation. And it absolutely has been a tough couple years, one we couldn't have predicted, and we still can't continue to predict. But I appreciate all the questions we've gotten tonight. You've given us some really good things to think about as we do talk about how we progress through this. So thank you very, very much to everyone.
Lila